Well, good day. Today I want to share with you faith, trust, and the hijacking of language. Why meaning matters in a post-trauma world. When words lose their meaning, people lose their freedom. That's Confucius. We live in a world flooded with language, but parched of meaning. Today we confuse faith with blind belief. We mistake pity for empathy. We flatten sacred, ancient concepts like Dharma, religio, and Shraddha into buzzwords or theological slogans. Then we wonder why people feel lost, disoriented, and abandoned in their search for meaning. What if the collapse we're seeing in trust in institutions, in ourselves, isn't a political or psychological problem alone, but a linguistic one? What if our trauma isn't just stored in the body, but also encoded in the breakdown of the words we use to make sense of ourselves? The problem with flattened faith. In Greek, the word pistis originally meant trust, loyalty, allegiance. In Hebrew, emunah meant steadfastness. In Latin, fides was not just belief, it was fidelity, commitment, a moral bond, a covenant. And in Sanskrit, shraddha pointed to a living trust and spiritual sincerity, more like trust than belief, a devotion and a commitment that from it is born confidence. But over time, these all became flattened into faith, not embodied active trust, just believe what you're told. This linguistic reduction isn't neutral. It disables our capacity to think clearly, feel deeply, and respond authentically. Nietzsche, ressentiment, and the trauma loop. Nietzsche understood this danger. He warned of ressentiment, not just resentment, but a deeper, corrosive sense of powerlessness turned inward. It's a psychological feedback loop, not unlike what we now call trauma. What does resentment do? What does ressentiment do? It distorts values, it flattens experience, it uses pity as a weapon, because real empathy, empathy that empowers, is too dangerous for the status quo. We see this today in certain trauma therapies that center the predator rather than the survivor. Instead of building frameworks of healing around the wounded, we get pity systems that understand abusers and leave the broken to fend for themselves. This isn't just clinical failure, it's a moral inversion. Dharma is not religion, and neither is religion. In a recent seminar, a professor insisted his students use the word Dharma instead of religion to avoid confusion. But ironically, that created more confusion. Dharma isn't just a religion, it's a concept, a path, a duty, right living, and spiritual devotion. The Sanskrit Dharma has dozens of layers, just like the Latin religio or religiare. For Cicero and others, it meant a binding, a path that you followed, a devoted practice, a way of life, not dogma, not ritual for ritual's sake, but a tethering to what matters most. Sadly, as the West colonized the world, it exported its narrowed, institutionalized view of religion. And now even in India, people confuse Dharma with religion as creed, and faith with belief instead of trust, and yoga as a practice rather than a connection to the divine. Reclaiming meaning, rebuilding trust. Here's the heart of the matter. You can't heal from trauma with broken language. You can't grow a society on words that no longer point to truth. You can't raise children or consciousness on inherited slogans that lack soul. So we must reclaim our words. Start with the basics. Faith should mean trust, not blind belief. Empathy is shared experience, not condescending pity. Religion is a binding commitment, not an institutional identity. Dharma is a path, not a checklist of do's and don'ts. We need to relearn these meanings, not as intellectual curiosities, but as survival skills. Because in a time when everything feels like it's falling apart, meaning is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. It's mandatory. So a call to action. Ask yourself, what words do you live by? Have you inherited definitions that disempower you? Have you let others decide what your faith, your path, your healing should look like? What would it mean to reclaim language? Not just for your voice, but for your soul. If we want to build a post-trauma world, we need post-trauma language. Language rooted in trust, not submission. In empathy, not pity. In clarity, not confusion. So let's start with the words. Let's start with ourselves and make yourself your greatest creation. And remember what Paul Desmet said, building on Hannah Arendt's philosophy of totalitarianism. He said, remember that identity are the stories that other people tell that you live, whereas myth are the stories that you tell and you live. That is true faith. That is true trust. And that is authenticity, integration, actualization. Doesn't matter the term. It all means the same. It's wholeness.